Breaking news about possible new COVID restrictions across North Carolina. But this time, Governor Cooper is taking a different strategy. Instead of ordering a statewide crackdown, he's asking counties to do it for him. WBT News learned this afternoon that Cooper is putting pressure on county governments to pass more local restrictions on restaurants and on public gatherings. On Wednesday, the state health director sent every county specific language for local laws that the governor would like to see passed. One law would require restaurants to stop selling alcohol at 9 p.m. Those that don't comply would be hit with fines. The governor also wants counties to outlaw mass gatherings, meaning no more than 10 people inside, no more than 25 outside. And again, those that don't comply could be hit with huge fines. Now, late this afternoon, Mecklenburg County Commissioner Pat Cotham told me that, for now, Mecklenburg County will not go along with tougher restrictions requested by the governor.
We are not going to do anything with this at this point. I did chat with the county manager, and she said, we're not going to do anything about this right now. So, and I haven't, none of my colleagues have said anything about it. So at this point, it's the county leadership, our health department, they don't think it's in our best interest right now to do this.
Well, Brett Jensen and I have been working on this story today, and we're going to spend a good bit of time on it here in the first half hour of Charlotte at 6. Brett joins me now. Brett, the politics of this is just fascinating. So here, Governor Cooper up for re-election. He hasn't been shy about putting restrictions down, and now he's pushing the counties to pass restrictions on mass gatherings and get even tougher on restaurants.
Yeah, we were able to report on Wednesday and break the news statewide that North Carolina was going to stay in phase 3. But along that was the caveat that he was going to do it now, and then everything could change immediately after the election because, as I was told, after the election, he doesn't have to worry about garnering votes. And so then he could be more and move North Carolina backwards as more cases more and more cases continue to rise in North Carolina. But you also have to remember, Mark, that as we've gone along, while the numbers have gone down a little bit, but for the most part, numbers were very similar. I remember on a Wednesday, he trashed Dan Forrest about opening schools, and then 2 days later, opened schools. and as we've gotten closer to the election, he's eased restrictions. And then now that we are 11 days out, he doesn't want to do anything. And so now he's asking the counties to do it.
It is. I was stunned when I found out about this today, to be honest. I figured he was just going to sit tight and do nothing until the election. And of course, maybe what he wants to have happen is for the counties to start thinking about this and act as soon as the election is over. But you talked to Michael Whatley, who's the state Republican chair, and he told you flatly that Cooper is doing this because he knows crackdowns are unpopular.
And is just another big step by the governor to try and shut down every aspect of this economy. And again, I will default back to the fact that he's not willing to make this type of a request or an order himself. The fact that they're pushing this down on the counties because this polling is upside down is really reprehensible.
Yeah, he says the governor's polling on this is upside down, and yet the governor is running quite well against Dan Forrest in the polls. So all of this is a bit of a political mystery to me.
Yeah, it really is. And I can tell you from the local levels, I mean, you heard from Commissioner Pat Cotham where she said, as of now. I think that being the key term, as of now. That doesn't mean next week. That doesn't mean in 14 days. That means as of now at this moment.
Yeah.
But I can also tell you that about 45 county managers got on a teleconference call today from across the state of North Carolina, and all 45 of them or so that were on the conference call all decided they weren't going to do this, that they were going to stay status quo and not do what the governor would like them to do. And I can also tell you that Dr. Cohen is expected to speak to every single county manager in a conference call in the next coming days.
Wow, so she's putting the pressure on. it's clear that the governor wants the counties to do this. And it's interesting because Wednesday, when President Trump was in town, Dan Forrest got some of the biggest response to his short speech when he talked about the fact that Governor Cooper has put too many restrictions on the state.
For 4 years, we have a governor who's done absolutely nothing except for shut our state down, shut our schools down, close our economy down, and destroy one of the greatest economies the United States of America has ever seen.
So do you think that Cooper's feeling a little heat, and so now he wants more restrictions, but he's going to try to force the counties to do it?
Yeah, I think so, and here's why, Mark. So we've already had, 2 million people, I believe, already vote in the state of North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, with early voting between absentee ballots and one-stop voting. But that still leaves roughly 5 million registered voters who haven't voted yet. 5 million who are eligible to vote who have not voted. And, don't forget, Governor Cooper only beat Governor McCrory by 30,000 votes, and that was all because of what happened right there on the I-77 toll lanes.
Yeah.
Had that gone like it did in 2012, Governor McCrory would not be working at WBT right now. So, it was a scant 30,000 votes. And so, when you start getting all the Republicans that are definitely going to vote Republican, and I think you're also going to get a lot of independents in, this could be a lot closer than many people think.
Well, some of the Republican leaders are saying that. So what we have here is the governor sent all 100 counties 2 sample ordinances that he would like to see passed. One of them has to do with mass gatherings, but to me it's a little fuzzy. He wants it starts by saying it shall be unlawful for any mass gathering to occur. Then it defines the mass gathering as more than 10 inside, more than 25 outside. Obviously, this would not include church services because the federal courts have ruled against Cooper on that, but this would again turn the hospitality industry on its ear for wedding receptions or all kinds of things.
Oh, absolutely, Mark. And, but how about now that parents are able to actually watch their kids play t-ball or softball or soccer or whatever is adopted? That may come to an end rather abruptly, with fall soccer and whatnot. So, yeah, and then, like you said, in the hospitality industry, and in terms of restaurants, hotels have already just been demolished. But in terms of restaurants, many of whom are just barely surviving, this could be a death knell.
Yes, indeed, because the other sample ordinance that the governor would like all 100 counties to pass would cut off the sales of alcohol at 9 o'clock. He's already cut it off at 11. Now he wants to move it at 9. Coming up in our next segment, you've talked to a number of restaurant owners about this. They're outraged, and we'll go in depth on exactly what their reaction is to this. But again, I just the strategy of this here. We're a week and a half from Election Day, and instead of letting this business of restrictions just sit there, he's trying to push county governments to do it. I was stunned about it.
Well, I tell you, when I immediately started talking to a lot of these restaurant owners and bar owners that we're getting ready to hear, they were equally as stunned. And just from a political standpoint, it makes no sense. And, and then a lot of the owners that we're going to listen to will tell you from a business standpoint, it makes no sense.
Yeah, it's going to hurt them. Coming up on 620, Friday, here on WBT, Charlotte at 6. I'm Mark Garrison, and we continue with our coverage of a breaking story. WBT News learning today that Governor Cooper is pushing every county in the state, all 100, to pass tougher restrictions on restaurants and on public gatherings. But instead of doing a statewide order, it's political season. The governor wants individual counties to do it. He wants counties to have restaurants stop selling alcohol as of 9 p.m. He wants local governments to outlaw mass gatherings, meaning no more than 10 people inside, no more than 25 outside. And he wants the counties to enact an ordinance that says those who don't comply would be hit with fines up to $1,000. So it's a tough crackdown that the governor is asking for, but he's not doing it himself. He's asking county government to do it. Now, earlier this evening, you heard from Pat Cotham, county commissioner, said Mecklenburg County's not going to do anything on that for now. but we'll see. Brett Jensen has been talking to local restaurant owners as well about this and joins me now. So, Brett, you also mentioned, and it's worth mentioning again, so far a bunch of counties have talked about this, and they're turning thumbs down on the idea.
Yeah, there was a conference call. So there are exactly 100 counties in North Carolina, and at least right around 45 of the county managers were on a teleconference call today, and everyone that was on that particular teleconference call agreed they would not do this.
Now, it's interesting that one thing that the governor and the state health director is asking counties to do is to crack down on restaurants yet again. Restaurants have in many ways had to suffer the brunt of the governor's restrictions. They can only have 50% capacity inside. They've already been restricted to cut off selling alcohol at 11, and now he wants that even further. He wants counties to restrict restaurants to cut off selling booze at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and that's a tough bill. So what people need to understand, restaurants generally make most of their money off of alcohol sales, and and they do fine with food sales, obviously. I mean, obviously McDonald's does well, but the reason McDonald's does well is because it sells so much food. Yeah. But just a normal restaurant, it will make a high percentage of its profits and able to pay its rent and the employees because of the alcohol sales. And some of these places have already lost 3 hours worth of sales from 11 to 2, and now if this goes into effect, that's 5 hours of sales per day times 7. You're 35 hours worth of sales that you're not able to get.
Now, one guy you talked to, Michael Palladino, he owns Sip Uptown, and he says cutting off the alcohol at 9 would just shut him down.
Well, this would devastate me and all bars in the area. I would have to close down because there's no way I can survive. I am currently paying rent, utilities as it is, only being able to be open at reduced hours to 11 as it is, and that hurts our business because most of our business was after 11 o'clock. So I've already lost that, and if it goes down to 9, the game's over.
Game over. You're hearing that from a lot of restaurant owners, and I think it's worth pointing out that as far as we know, there have been no COVID outbreaks reported from restaurants.
Well, I can tell you this. So, and you just heard Michael Palladino, like you said, and he's an actual bar owner, and they don't serve food. So he's had even stricter conditions placed on him than restaurants have. And you're right, Mark. It's as far as North Carolina is concerned, I haven't seen or heard of one single outbreak, or as they've been calling it, a super spreader or anything like that related to a restaurant. Yes, you've had an employee here or there, a waiter or a cook here or there shut down, but they've been no indication that there's been spread or mass spread at all because of restaurants. Not one bit.
Exactly. Now, you also talked to Ron Hebert. He owns Red Rocks, which is a popular restaurant in Birkdale Village, also in South Park, and he also has Red Rocks in South Carolina. Now, that's interesting because here in North Carolina, already he can only have 50% capacity, but in South Carolina, he's wide open, and he said more restrictions, again, just won't work.
Well, first thing is our South Carolina location, which is South Carolina, actually have 100% of the seating occupancy. We're doing very well there. And because of the Cooper, we're at 50% of occupancy, which, obviously we're down about 20% doing that. Now he's going to go to 9 p.m. That's going to cost another 10%. So again, I don't see why he's doing it, since I haven't seen a lot of big outbreaks at restaurants.
Yeah, he makes the same point we were just talking about. People are eating out more and more, and they're not tracing outbreaks to the restaurants.
No, and he even told me, and also that over the last couple of months, they have seen their sales actually go up when Cooper has loosened the restrictions somewhat, and when Mecklenburg County, specifically Mecklenburg County and Charlotte, which had stricter conditions than even the state had for a while concerning restaurants, that once those loosened up, he's actually seen an uptick in sales over the last 2 months, and now he said, basically it's going to be all for nothing.
In case you're just joining us here at 625, so Brad and I are talking about the fact that Governor Cooper is leaning on all 100 counties to pass restrictions, more restrictions on restaurants, forcing them to stop serving alcohol at 9 o'clock. Now, this is interesting, Brett. I had a chance to chat with Lynn Menges today. She's the head of the State Restaurant Association. Last week, they had her at a press conference with Mandy Cohen, the state health director. She has talked about how the restaurants have tried to play ball with the state. She was stunned today when she heard that Cooper wants further restrictions on restaurants and that he wants the counties to pass those restrictions. She didn't want to do an interview, but she wrote me and said, obviously, we are very much against this.
Well, and it speaks volumes to the fact that, they paraded her out there to beg and plead to everyone to wear a mask on the behalf of restaurants.
Yeah.
And yet he and Dr. Cohen are sending these memos to all 100 county managers, and she has nary a clue that this is even being considered or being discussed or being wanted. And I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, the governor and his staff and Mandy Cohen hid this from restaurants, that they were going to be asking counties to pass a stricter crackdown. You also spoke with Andy Henderson, I believe, who owns...
Andy Henson.
Henson, that's right, with Angry Ale, and he said if they have to stop serving alcohol at 9, well, they're going under.
For sure, any bar or restaurant that counts on alcohol sales, it would be very hard to even open the doors, and there's very little chance of ever thinking about breaking even if we had to close at 9 o'clock.
I don't see how some restaurants are making it anyway.
I spoke to a high-end restaurant general manager also, and high-end restaurants generally rely on wine sales. They sell a lot of wine when you're at a high-end restaurant, and he told me the same thing. He said, if we have to stop our wine sales, even though we're allowed to serve food after 9 o'clock, if we have to stop our alcohol sales and wine sales at 9 o'clock, he said they might as well just shut the restaurant down.
Yeah.
That's at a high-end restaurant.
Yeah. It's going to be tough for any restaurant to make it if they've got to stop serving alcohol at 9 o'clock. So I did talk to one county commissioner, Mecklenburg County Commissioner, who did not want to say much since it is election season, but said, why are we picking on restaurants with COVID? That's not where the problem is. So once again, kind of to recap this, Governor Cooper is pressuring all 100 counties to pass more restrictions on restaurants and on mass gatherings. He doesn't want to do it himself. He wants the counties to do it. And so far, Mecklenburg is saying they're not going to do it now. And, Brett, you're saying 45 other counties got on a conference call today and said, no, they're not going to do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to do it. They don't want to do it because they know it would be just completely devastating to the restaurants. And, and a lot of the restaurant owners are upset because, like we talked about earlier, Mark, they're saying there's no proof. There hasn't been any cases, mass spreading cases linked to restaurants or anything like that. So they are very concerned and very upset about this, and many of them that we spoke to today just believe, even the successful ones, believe they may not survive if they have to stop alcohol sales at 9 o'clock. But it also tells you, Mark, that this is the time of politics and the election because he doesn't want to do it himself.
Yep, and it'll be interesting to see how much arm twisting the governor does on counties and how many fall in line and pass more restrictions. Brett, great work. Thank you so much.